Yes, Mr. Witt, since this does involve negotiations with district employee associations, I move that the Board of Education move into executive session to discuss negotiations with the district employee associations pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute 24-6-4024E.
Is there a second?
I second.
Roll call. I'm sorry,
No.
discussion. Discussion?
Last week, we heard from many community members as they spoke about our divided district, how we needed to come together and the need to stop the us-them mentality. And once again, we need to become a we district. Our focus must be on all children. As leaders in this district, we must begin to rebuild the lost trust with our teachers and our community. Negotiations are in open session in order to be more transparent, and I believe in order to be consistent with that transparency, we must discuss our guidance in open sessions rather than in executive sessions. It is important for everyone, teachers, staff, community, and everyone, to hear our commitments and our intentions.
I would add a quick thought to that. I think Ms. Spellman has said it well. The board has repeatedly stressed the importance of accountability and transparency. Our community has called for even greater transparency and accountability. When JCEA approached this board for open negotiations, it was in the spirit of increased transparency. And I think we've already had a couple of executive sessions on this topic. I think as a board, we also have to be thoughtful. We have to be judicious about when we go into executive session and when we talk about issues in public. As these negotiations have been in open session, as the board has already voted last Thursday on what it wanted to do regarding salary increases, I am very comfortable having a public conversation about what our different options are and what those look like. I don't think now is the time to talk about those things.
Mr. Miller, I would appreciate your opinion as well in terms of the constraints that we might have or not have if we continue with public session.
I strongly urge you to conduct the advice to negotiators portion of this very, very important session in an executive session. It's incumbent and it's in the best interest of the district, and recognizing that this board has to acknowledge and support a number of different disparate interests. The edifice itself, the teachers certainly, the community. Your fiduciary duty requires that you manage this in the most professional manner possible, that you give your negotiators the right leverages, the right understandings, and that you have an open dialogue amongst yourselves. This is really critical. I can't urge you strongly enough that you must do this in an executive session.
So we have a motion and a second, and we have discussion. We need to close out this vote. Roll call.
Ms. Dahlkemper? No. Ms. Spellman?
No.
Mr. Newkirk?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Witt?
Yes. As we've heard from our legal counsel, executive session is the appropriate thing to be doing here. We've heard it both from district counsel and we've heard it from board counsel. It is unfortunate that this board has not been able to listen to the advice of its counsel, but at this point, let's proceed with the description of the process for impasse. It's very much a disappointment that the association has chosen to declare impasse
It's
again.
a disappointment that this board has broken one of the promises that was made regarding salary increases. It's a disappointment that when we had our board meeting last Thursday, this board reduced the amount of salary, which sends the wrong message in terms of valuing our employees. That to me is the broader and bigger disappointment.
The board did not reduce the amount of salary.
You
No
reduced it
salary
by
reductions. No salary reductions have occurred with this board. There's an $11.7 million placeholder, which is still there.
I would really love to hear from the other colleagues on the board regarding,
Don't worry, Ms. Dahlkemper.
regarding the idea of a 12.5
Ms. Dahlkemper, this is a
compensation.
public
And if
meeting.
that's something that would be open to other board members. We've heard Mr.
Ms.
Witt's
Dahlkemper,
perspective.
excuse me, you need
I
to
would
defer
love
to
to
the
hear.
chair.
I
Ms.
deferred from the
Dahlkemper.
chair earlier.
You need to defer to the chair now.
I'm sorry,
Ms.
Mr. Witt.
Dahlkemper, if
we're a
someone wishes
five-
to speak, they will ask to
We're a-
speak. It is not for you.
Mr. Witt,
to
let me
ask them to
remind you
speak.
that we are a 5-member board. We're not a 1-member board. We are a 5-member board.
That is
And
correct.
at the very least, I would love to hear from my other colleagues on the board, from whom I have not heard, to see if we can continue to move forward in open negotiations.
As what
I don't think that's
as
a lot
what
to
Ms.
ask.
Dahlkemper. As
Wonderful.
what I-
Can we do that?
Can you follow the rules of order that you've agreed to for this meeting and for all meetings of this board?
I would love to hear from the other colleagues.
Can you follow the
Thank you.
rules of order that you have agreed to?
Thank you, Mr.
Are you
Witt.
able to follow the rules of order of the meeting, Ms. Dahlkemper?
Are you able to allow other board members sitting on either side of you to provide their opinion, Mr. Witt, at
So
this
you are
executive
unable to
session?
follow the rules of order of a public meeting.
And you
Ms.
are
Dahlkemper.
unable to allow others at the board table who've been elected to serve this community to provide their opinion? That's all I'm asking.
I will certainly recognize those members that wish to speak, as I
Thank you.
always have.
I think it's really important for us to recognize that both parties picked this mediator, Mr. Doherty, and that they're willing to go to mediation with this individual. I think that's really important for us to remember. And I'm going to say it again, I really believe that we need to keep mediation separate from fact-finding.
I'm sorry, Ms. Dahlkemper, I think you had your hand up, is that right?
I did. And I would say, I would add to that, that before we even talk to mediation, about mediation, I'm sorry, that we circle back to where Ms. Weber began, which is the work that has been accomplished so far in terms of agreement with JCEA and the two outlying issues that are on the table, one of which is compensation. One of the things that we heard from our community as a board is that compensation was a priority both in the community survey and in the community engagement sessions. It came up consistently across the board. Employees have not seen a pay increase for 4 years. They took a compensation reduction. I, again, would encourage this board to think, so we can stay in open negotiations and continue the process in good faith, that we consider a higher dollar amount, but one that is still balanced overall with the rest of the budget for salary compensation. So we don't even need to enter into the conversation about mediation and whether it's open and closed, but we can continue to work in a way that is collaborative in the best interests of the district overall.
My concern there is that runs dangerously close to you negotiating on the side of the JCEA.
I would like to respond to that, because I think that is an outrageous comment on your part. I think that you have made an assumption that is completely false. My comment to this board was to consider how we can get the district negotiations team back to the table. We have heard, and I will say it for the third or fourth time, Ms. Weber say that we are close. It would be a shame at this point to move into mediation without consideration by this board in direct response to our community, which said we have 3 priorities. And one of those priorities in a budget survey that 13,000 community members responded to was increased compensation.
Roll call.
Ms. Dahlkemper?
Yes.
Ms. Feldman?
Yes?
Mr. Newkirk?
No.
Ms. Williams? No. Mr. Witt?
No. I would like to see, and I'd like to know whether or not there are other board members who share my view, I would like to see a statement from JCEA about specifically what it would take to get them back to the negotiating table. I would love to see them come back to the negotiating table.